of the GCSE coding challenges is to create a Pig Latin sentence converter, and I thought I'd take you through that and we can see how we can do this in Python. So I've got a file here called Pig Latin, and I've just put a comment at the top, Pig Latin. The first thing we're going to want is a sentence, and I'm going to put hello, how are you? And I've deliberately missed out punctuation at this time. Now we could of course use an input so we can change it anytime, but for testing purposes we want to have something that we know and we can be sure what the answer will be every time. Now once we have that sentence, we need to be able to iterate or loop through every word in that, and Python has a function on a string called split, which allows us to split depending upon whether, for example, on a comma, on a space, on a semicolon, on a tab. And so I'm going to say word list, because I'm going to create a list, and I'm going to say is equal to sentence dot split, and I want to split it on a space, so I have a space in between here. And to see if that works, let's just type in print word lists, and I'm going to run this code, and you can see down here at the bottom that it's taken my sentence hello, how are you as a string and has converted that to 1, 2, 3, 4 strings in a list, which we can see by the square brackets. So now we have that, we can now iterate or loop through each word by word list. So I can say forward in word list, and that will iterate through each word in that list, and within this for loop I'll have access to that word by the variable word. Now the first thing that I need to do is I want to make life easy for myself, because I want to be able to manipulate and edit items of the word. A string is what's known as immutable. That means although we can access it by its index, we cannot edit an item in that, whereas a list we can change the value at any index. So there is a Python command called list. So I'm going to say letters is equal to list, which is a function or class for creating a list on my word. So if I print letters, we can now see that we have hello split down into a string, how are you, all of these in individual characters in a list. What can we do with that? Well, first of all we can do is you can say if letters 0, that's the first one, and then we want to check if it's A, E, I or U. So we could do long-winded, we could say is it A, or letters 0 equal capital A, or letters 0 equal E, and so on. That's a bit long-winded, but we could do it that way. What we can do is, first thing we can do is actually make that a lowercase check. So if we put lower on the end, it will take that first character and make it lower, and then we can use a Python property called in, which checks for anything whether it's in a list. So we can go A, oops, we want that as lowercase now because everything is in lowercase, A, E, I, O, oops, O, and U. So that will say if the lowercase version of the first character in letters is in A, E, I, O, or U, then we want to do something with it. Well, what do we want to do? Well, in this particular case, we don't want to do anything with it. We want to just put it back as a string. So we have another way of doing this. So we can go new word equals, and I'll explain this in a second, join, if I can spell properly, letters. So what that will do is it will take a list or array of strings and it will join them together, and in between each one it will put whatever's in between these speech marks. So if I had that, then hello will become H, L, E, L, L, O. As we haven't got anything in there, it should just print us the word. Let's just print that so we can see and check before we move on whether that's working. So the only word with a vowel is R. So we should have R back at the end again. We've just basically undone what we just did. We might think that's a little bit silly, but we're doing that for a reason, to introduce it for later on. Now, what we want to do now actually is take new word and add. So that means new word is equal to new word plus, and we want to use A. It could be way or A, depending upon which version of Pig Latin you choose. So let's just print new word out now, and that should give me RA, which it has. So that has worked. What do we need to do now? Well, we're going to need to reconstitute this sentence. So I'm going to have a new variable up here, new sentence, and this is going to be an empty list. And so what I'm going to do now is I'm going to append. So that's new sentence dot append my new word. And I'm just going to close off that end if and close off that end for. And just so we can see it in action, we can just, again, we're going to go print new sentence. Now, in this case, we should only have one value. So we can see now we have a list of one value. Now we need to move on. So if it's not a vowel, it must be a consonant. So what do we do in this case? Well, again, this time what we need to do is we need to get the first letter and remove it from the list. So I'm going to create a variable called first letter equal letters dot pop, and we want to get the first one at the 0th index. What that will do is if we have HELLO, it will return H into first letter and then remove that from the list. So what we can do, again, let's just do print first letter to make sure that is working correct. So we should have HHY because R will have gone into the first part of the for loop. So we have there H, H, and Y, and then we have the array or REA. So we know that that's working. So once we have that, what do we need to do? Well, we need to actually pop that or put that back on the end. So we can say, we can go letters dot append, because it's an array or a list, first letter. So now let's just, so we can see that everything is working, print letters. I'm just going to remove this print statement now, so we're just dealing with the thing. So we can see we've got LOH O-W-H and O-W-O-U-Y. But we have got one issue, is that H now is at the end of it and it's a capital letter. So again, what we can do here is we can convert that to lowercase. If we run that now, we'll see that they're all lowercase. So once we have that appended, then we can simply say new word equals, and we're going to do exactly the same thing here. We're going to join them back together. I'm going to join letters into a string, so let's just check that that works. Print new word. And what have I done? That's because I can't type. That should say letters. Stop that a second. Oh, let's have our debug IO. So here we can see that the word is being constituted back again. Let's just now do new word equals new word plus, and we want to add an A on the end, so let's just check that's now working. And oh hey, oh hey, oh hey. So we know that that is now working, and this time we're just going to copy this code here because we want to add that to our new sentence. And so let's here print out the new sentence. And now we can see it started with one item, then the second item, then the third item, and then the fourth item. So once we're done, we have that new sentence. We can then again join that into a string. So we can say, finally, the final sentence is equal to, and this time we want to join them with a space in between. So we're going to put space join new sentence. So this time it will take each of those words and put them together. So let's just again, just so we can check this is working, final sentence. I'll just remove this print statement because we've checked all of that working now. And you'll see that that is working just fine. And if you're not worried about punctuation, that then is the end of the challenge. Now, if you're not sure how to use in, I showed you how you can use equals equals and then do a check for A. We can still use the lower, but we can say equals equals A or letters not dot lower equals equals E. This is just a nice quick way of doing it. You need to know how to join and split because you're going to want to have to use that in importing text files. How can we deal with the situation of punctuation? Well, I'm going to just put some code in here. So what we can do is we can now get the last character, and we can do that simply in Python by having a array value of -1, which is essentially gives us the last value, and we're going to make it a lowercase. And then the odd function converts our character to a number, and the letter A lowercase starts at 97. So anything less than 97 is going to be punctuation. So if that is the case, we are going to pop, and if you don't put any number in here, it will automatically pop the last character. So we're going to get the last character and take it off the list. And if it's not that, then we're just going to set last char equal to an empty string. We're going to do that because now we can say new word equals that plus last char, and then I'm going to do this code again. Okay, we're one level indented too far, so I'm just going to fix that. Okay, so we've got that code in here again. We can put new word plus equals that plus last char, and now hopefully if I put hello comma how are you with a question mark at the end, we now have our punctuation in as well. So there's a lot of code there, and I wouldn't expect for your GCSE for you to be worrying about the punctuation. And just to show that it works without having to use the in, if you don't know what that is, let's just make it this work. So if what we'll do to make life easier is we will say, in this case we'll do first char equals this. This is going to make our code easy to read, and so we can say if first char equals a, or, and I'm just going to copy this now, first char equals e, or e I, or o, or u, then let's check that works, and you'll see that we have because I've left my punctuation in, I want to take that punctuation because I took that out to make this shorter code. You'll see that it works again exactly. So if you're not sure how to use that in, you should be able to do this code in Python, Boolean logic, checking to see where if one of those is correct, because that's what an OR does, then we know that we have a vowel. Of course, this doesn't cover the case of your consonant cluster, and you could do that as a challenge exercise. Hope that's been of help. Thank you.